Hi, I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Coleman Report Live. Lance, we're 5 months through 2020. I think all of us want 2020 to be over as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it feels like we've already lived through a year or 2 years, or in the SBA world, 12 years.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's been a very busy 2-month period for all of us, and the information that's coming out, Bob, comes in bits and pieces. Katie and I were talking about this before you came on. Seems like every day there's something new that tweaks the PPP programs.
Right. Katie, our editor, of course, Lance, former deputy director of Little Rock Commercial, said, hey, thank you all for joining us and supporting our program. I think you all know about the certificates that documents your training. It counts. Poll question, will the PPP Flexibility Act create more demand for small business borrowers to receive PPP funds from SBA? That's almost a tongue twister. I got through it.
Well, Bob, I have a strong opinion on this, but I'm not going to talk about it until we see what everybody else thinks.
What's your opinion?
Bob, I don't know that there's going to be more demand. I think the first round of funding went out to all those borrowers that were prepared, all the sole proprietors, contractors that were out there tried to get in on the first round, and I think that's what most participant lending institutions are seeing in round two. I honestly, Bob, think the PPP funds will last for a few months unless something really out of the ordinary occurs. The other thing that happens to use up that amount, there's, Katie, and you might correct me if I'm wrong, still about $140 billion that's out there. The average size of loans that participant institutions are processing now are much smaller than the first round. So I really think that amount of money will last a long time. And I'm not sure the Flexibility Act, it'll probably create a little more demand. The main thing it does is helps those borrowers looking to get forgiveness.
And speaking of forgiveness, Lance, do you have any insight as to when we're going to get more guidance?
Well, I mean, I really honestly think, the Paycheck Protection Program, Flexibility Act, man, this period of Paycheck Protection Program has been you said a tongue twister, Bob. Doing a webinar yesterday, it happened about 12 times in a short period of time. The Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act probably is going to be the final address to the Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness. Now, what you're seeing here, Katie and I were talking about it, and Katie has more insight than me, is a great improvement. I think going from 8 to 24 weeks is a substantial improvement, especially for those businesses that are not fully open yet. Would have liked to, Bob, seen the payroll percentage be reduced even more.
Let me cut you off there, Lance. Let's bring Katie into the conversation. Katie, this passed yesterday?
Yes, it did. Yesterday afternoon. And Lance and I were just talking about it earlier, and he's doing a great job of summarizing it. I think, the 8-week to 24, that was kind of unexpected. What were we thinking before? 16 weeks? So this is significantly more. And then the 75% rule, they're lowering that to 60%. And we were just saying before we got on, we thought it was going to be a little bit lower.
Well, and Katie and I were talking about, Katie and I were both talking about the Senate is likely to change that percentage, don't you think, Katie?
Yeah, the Senate has not scheduled when they're going to look at this act or the HEROES Act, which also passed in the House a while back. Which both of these are essentially saying a lot of the same things, and the Senate hasn't looked at either of them yet, but they are scheduled to be in session this week, this coming week. So hopefully they'll take a chance to look at this and present, and if they want, they'll pass it, but I think they might present their own bill just as an option.
Talk about the
Bob, the
payroll tax deferment. How long will that last?
What's
Do
that,
we
Bob?
know? How long will the payroll tax deferment last? Do we know?
I read the bill from top to bottom. I'm not real sure. It wasn't clear in that. The other thing that's in the Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act is extending the term from 2 to 5 years, which I think is a good thing. And initially, guys, I was terrified of that because there are millions of 2-year notes out there, but then I sat and let it sink in that you're not going to have to modify all of them. The only loans you'll have to modify are those that do not give forgiveness. And in those circumstances, going from 2 to 5 years will make a big difference in whether they repay the loan or not.
Let's recap where we are. So the House has passed it, correct, Katie?
Right.
And it now goes to the Senate, and they have to go to conference. Then the president signs it, and then goes to SBA. This is for both of you. How long do you think it'll take for SBA to write guidance for us?
I think it's going to take a
I'm
little
not
bit longer
trying to
to do
answer.
this one. I think this one might take a little bit longer because we've already got some forgiveness guidelines out there. So I think this is just going to make it more flexible for everyone. So I don't think they feel as pressured to get the guidance out right away.
Well, what I love about, I'm sorry, Lance, let me finish and you jump in.
Okay.
What I love about this slide is right at the top, 417 to 1. This is truly bipartisan.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Katie and I were talking about this. We were talking about this earlier. You know, small business owners that can meet the original forgiveness guidelines in place, the ones that spent all their money on payroll, go ahead and submit for forgiveness. They're going to be fine. This is just going to help those restaurants, hair salons, and businesses that are not open, that needed extra time to spend the money, needed to be able to spend a little more on rent and utilities. But, you know, a lot of my small businesses, Bob, I told them, just spend it on payroll. If you spend 100% of it on payroll, you will get forgiven. And so this is just going to help that huge segment of business that either is not open or is open on a limited basis.
Yeah, I mean, there's still restaurants throughout, you know, LA County's closed, Orange County just reopened, and then throughout the country, there are still restaurants that are closed. And I'm sobered by the fact that the article I read that said 25% of these restaurants will not be able to reopen, which is sad. Lance, you did a webinar yesterday on the 1502. Give us the big takeaways from that.
Well, today's the day that banks are required to submit their PPP loan 1502 report. And one of the things that's important is your regular 1502 report and the PPP 1502 report are separate submissions. But your 1502 report on PPP loans is due today. And SBA's issued guidance that said if they have your ACH information and you submit the 1502 report on your PPP loans, that the fee, the processing fee, the all-important fee that every institution in the country is waiting to receive, should be processed in your bank's account that the ACH is tied to within 3 business days. Now, Katie and Bob, we both know with the massive nature of this program, it may be a challenge for SBA to meet 3 business days, but still they've identified, you know, it sounds to me, Bob, like if you submit a 1502 report and it's accepted by Coleman, that sometime next week the bank should receive those processing fees.
Lance, we got a question, which we get a ton of questions. Thank you. And obviously we're trying to get to as many as we can. And someone asked us, is there a difference between a canceled loan or a voluntarily terminated loan? Is there a difference?
Apparently there's going to be I think a canceled loan and a voluntarily terminated loan are pretty similar in my view. But I think there's going to be an option for both in E-Trans servicing. You can report your canceled and voluntarily terminated loans both on the 1502 report, or you can do it in E-Trans servicing.
Joseph, let's go to the research slide. Is that next or? Nick, very good. Look at that. I'm on top of it. This came in yesterday. I think I gave a poor answer, Lance. So I'm going to do a take two and throw it over to you. What if we can't figure out why your loan is in research status? What should we do?
Well, I talked to a friend of mine at SBA, and we were discussing research status. Of course, banks got notification that some of the PPP loans were in research status, and you could go into E-Trans servicing and pull those up and look at them. Most of the loans that are in research status need something corrected. It could be correction of a taxpayer ID number. It could be a corrected address. It could be, you could have put a weird number. You could have put current number of employees as 10, retained employees 40. Is some sort of error that's not consistent. The SBA origination system would still let you submit it, still give you an SBA loan number, but something needs corrected. Another category that needs to be considered, Bob, is checking to make sure, once you put the business information in, then you're required to put principal information in by Social Security number. And let's say the borrower had an existing SBA loan with 3 principals on it, and then you did a PPP loan and only put 1 principal on the PPP loan. The system may have acknowledged that and needs you to add those other principles. So that is another area to correct. And the example I gave, Bob, is let's say you and I and Katie all had a business, 33% and a third % ownership each. We got a previous SBA loan. All 3 of us were reflected. And then we submitted a PPP application to an alternate bank that we bank with, and that bank put it in the system and only identified Katie as a principal. Well, the E-Trans system probably figured out that taxpayer ID number needs 3 principals. And so, that's another area to check. But basically, in a majority of cases, research status means something's not correct that you need to correct. Now, if going through all that, you can't find it, you're going to have to email SBA and ask them what the problem is.
Be more specific on that. What office do we email? What email address do we use?
I believe the email that they had sent out, the SBA sent out a form that showed how to do the entire thing, how to check for a research status. At the very end of that, they had somebody to contact if you're still having trouble.
And okay, so we can Google that. Do you know the date of that offhand, Katie, or the?
No, I don't know the date offhand. Sorry.
All right, Joseph, make a note. We'll include that in our dashboard next Monday. That notice. Well, Lance, you gave a much better answer than I did. So, but I went right to email SBA.
I would think that a majority of the loans in research status are going to just require a simple correction. But there could be instances where you have to add principals.
Got a couple questions. Craig says, we made a mistake. We included our PP loans in our April 1502 report. We're about to resubmit all the PPP loans through 519 per the recent guidance. Seems like there will be double counting. Do you have any advice for Craig?
Well, I think he's doing the right thing. You want to submit that PPP report today, just including PPP loans. And it's one thing that you need to do after you submit your 1502 report on your Paycheck Protection Program loans is make sure you monitor the dashboard for potential errors. Because if you just submit it and not monitor the dashboard for the next couple days, and there's an error in your report, that could cause a delay in you getting your processing fee. So make sure you monitor your 1502 dashboard for potential errors in that 1502 report. And my understanding, again, Bob could be wrong, but my understanding after this initial report, then you will report your PPP loans once a month at the same time as your regular portfolio 1502 report. So you'll be submitting two, your regular portfolio and your PPP 1502.
Katie, this is a fraud. Well, let's see. Well, let's ask this question, then we'll go to Katie's fraud party. Russell asks, is SBA issuing banks a different 1502 bank ID number for PPP reporting?
No, it's the same. It's the same location ID. So the answer is no. It's the same one. And we gave guidance in the webinar yesterday. We actually had a person that did not have a portal account, and we did give guidance on how to get set up with a portal account.
Good. What's going on with our friend in Texas?
So we've heard now a couple stories come out about PPP loan fraud, and this is probably one of the more clever ones I've seen. This man in Texas.
Yeah, real clever. He got arrested within 2 weeks. Go ahead.
Yes, but yeah. So he owned a business, but he was the only person who worked at the business, and he applied for a PPP loan at one bank, claiming to have 400 employees. That bank thought something was weird about the loan and ended up denying that loan. So then he went to another bank and submitting a second PPP loan, this time saying he only had 100 employees and asking for far less. The first loan he was asking for about $5 million. The second one he only asked for $500,000. The $500,000 loan did get approved. The problem was the 100 employees that he supposedly had were completely made up using an online name generator. And I used to use this when I was writing stories as a kid. You can click those and it'll just come up with different names every time you click it. So he came up with hundreds of names for these employees that didn't exist. And he also submitted completely fake forged tax documents with both of those loans.
No.
So he got the $500,000, and of course they caught him eventually.
I love it. I love it. Let's see. Lance, okay, couple things. 11 o'clock, 45 minutes from now, we have the National Rural Lenders Roundtable. The USDA people, the staff will be on there to talk about their CARES Act and the money they have. That's a free offering sponsored by the National Rural Lenders Roundtable. You should all have the link. If for some reason you don't have it, just shoot an email over to joseph@colemanreport.com and he will send that to you. But I'm very interested to see what they have to do with that. Lance, we have some upcoming webinars. We're going to do one on servicing in general, 7A loans, but also we're going to talk about servicing PPP loans, correct?
That's correct. And guys, on the 17th, we're going to get back to talking about regular servicing because right now, for lack of a better description, our SBA portfolios are being propped up by the 6 months worth of payments included in the CARES Act. Once we come out of those 6 months worth of payments, what happens to your portfolio? So it's important to understand how to service an SBA loan when it becomes past due. And also, at the end of the month, we're going to talk about doing a 10-tab guarantee purchase package, which there's nothing I love more, Bob. I'm a weird person than doing a 10-tab guarantee purchase package.
I love it. I love it. Hey, thank you all for your support. We have our summer training beginning July 1 in our award-winning series. And Lance does closing. I do the underwriting. And of course, we are offering our NICS and franchise default code information. Thank you for joining us today for the Coleman Report Update and supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Thanks.
Have a great weekend.